Before we start, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and open your heart. He is the ancient sage who divided the Vedas, the architect of the Mahabharata, and the voice behind the Bhagavad Gita. Veda Vyasa, the immortal storyteller of divine wisdom. Here are Veda Vyasa 10 life-changing lessons for daily life. Number 1, your thoughts shape your destiny. In a sacred forest where the air hummed with the prayers of sages, a wandering monk planted 2 seeds. One, a mighty banyan. The other is a slender bamboo. But these were no ordinary trees. They were living lessons in the power of the mind. The banyan seed whispered to the wind, "I will grow so grand, generations will rest in my shade." Even when monsoons lashed its tender leaves, it stood defiant. "Storms? They'll only make my roots stronger." But the bamboo seed, it groaned daily, "This soil is too hard. Why must I struggle?" After a few inches of growth, it gave up. "The banyan will overshadow me anyway." 10 years later, the banyan towered like a temple, its roots gripping the earth like destiny itself. Pilgrims tied prayers to its branches, their hopes carried skyward. And the bamboo, a brittle twig, forgotten before it could even be seen. Then came the hurricane. Trees screamed as they were torn from the earth. But the banyan, unshaken, its roots, forged by years of unwavering resolve, held firm. The bamboo snapped in an instant. Gone without a whisper, a sage gathered the villagers beneath the banyan's branches and revealed the truth. The banyan expected storms, so it prepared. The bamboo feared them, so it weakened. Your mind is the soil. Plant courage, and no wind can break you. Plant doubt, and you'll shatter at the first gust. But here's the secret. The banyan didn't just think, it acted. Every root dug deeper because it knew its purpose: to shelter, to endure. The bamboo, its fear paralyzed it long before the storm ever came. So tell me, which seed are you watering? Number 2, speak truth, but with kindness. In a bustling village by the Ganges, there lived a man who wore his honesty like armor. "I never lie," he boasted. "The world needs blunt truth, not sweet lies." People feared his tongue, for though his words were true, they often cut deeper than a dagger. One evening, a young widow sat weeping by the riverbank. Her husband had drowned trying to save a child from the raging waters. The villagers praised his sacrifice, calling him a hero. Husband marched up to her and declared, "Why weep? Your husband was a weak swimmer. Had he been stronger, he'd still be alive. His foolishness killed him, not bravery." Widow collapsed, her grief now poisoned with shame. The turning point, Vyasa's lesson. The sage, Vyasa, who had witnessed the scene, approached Vikram under the village banyan tree. "Come," he said, handing him a ripe mango. Vikram bit into it and immediately spat it out. "It's bitter. Why give me rotten fruit?" Vyasa smiled. "The seed inside is truth. The flesh around it is kindness. You forced widow to swallow a raw seed, and it broke her. Had you wrapped it in sweetness, she might have found strength in the truth." Husband frowned. "But shouldn't truth stand alone?" Vyasa shook his head. "Truth without compassion is like a scalpel without skill. It doesn't heal. It maims. Even poison, when used wisely, becomes medicine. We live in an age that praises brutal honesty, but Vyasa whispers across time, truth without love is noise. The next time you speak, ask not just, is this true, but is this kind? Will it help or harm? For the greatest truths are those that heal. Number 3, let go of what you can't control. The monk and the river. On the banks of the wild Yamuna, a young monk stood frozen. The river, swollen with monsoon rains, roared like a tempest. He had to reach the other side. His guru awaited him with urgent teachings. In his first attempt, he fought the current, muscles burning, clinging to a fallen branch. The river mocked his efforts, dragging him under. Gasping, he barely made it back to shore. The second attempt, he tied rocks to his feet for stability, only to sink deeper. The water choked him as villagers shouted, "Stop! You'll drown." When the moment of surrender, exhausted, the monk collapsed on the bank. "I cannot control this river," he admitted. With a shuddering breath, he released his grip on the branch and stepped in. To his shock, the current carried him, twisting but unharmed, depositing him gently on the far shore. The turning point, Vyasa's wisdom. His guru, the sage Vyasa, sat waiting beneath a peepal tree. "Why are you late?" he asked, though his eyes sparkled with knowing. Nishant bowed, trembling. "I tried to conquer the river. It humbled me." Vyasa lifted a handful of dry leaves, letting the wind take them. "Tell me, did the leaves reach the ground by their own will or by the air's grace?" Monk understood that control is an illusion. How often do we exhaust ourselves fighting rivers, circumstances, people, or emotions we cannot change? Comes not from controlling life, but from dancing with its currents. The next time you face your own raging waters, pause, breathe, and ask, "Am I holding a branch that's drowning me?" Number 4, wisdom lies in silence, the king's test. King, ruler of a prosperous kingdom, grew weary of long-winded advisors and philosophical debates. Seeking the essence of wisdom, he issued a proclamation, "Teach me life's greatest lesson in just one word. Succeed, and you'll be rewarded with gold. Fail, and you'll leave in disgrace." Scholars, priests, and philosophers lined up at the palace gates. The priest boomed, "Prayer!" The general barked, "Victory!" The merchant insisted, "Wealth!" The king dismissed them all. None of these answers rang true. Then came an old sage who had not spoken a word in 12 years. When his turn arrived, he simply knelt before the throne and said nothing. The king grew impatient. "Speak! What is your word?" Sage looked up, smiled gently, and whispered, "Listen." At first, the court erupted in murmurs. "That's not wisdom. It's cowardice," scoffed the ministers. But the king raised his hand, intrigued. "Explain," he commanded. Sage bowed again, then took out a small bell and rang it once. The metallic ting echoed through the hall. "How long did the sound last?" he asked. "A second, perhaps," said the king. Sage nodded. "Yet, how long did its echo linger in your mind? A word spoken is fleeting, but silence holds its meaning. You asked for one word, but have you ever truly listened to the 1,000 unspoken truths around you?" When news of this test reached the great sage Vyasa, he summoned his disciples and said the sage's lesson was not just about hearing, but about receiving. The wind speaks, the river hums, even the stars sing, but only in silence can you understand them. We live in a world drowning in noise, opinions, notifications, endless chatter. But Vyasa's ancient truth remains. The deepest wisdom isn't found in speaking, but in the sacred space between words. Sit where you are, close your eyes, and for 1 minute, just listen. Not to thoughts, not to memories, but to the silence beneath them. There, you'll find answers no book can teach you. Number 5, karma never forgets. In a sun-baked village where the earth cracked like a hungry mouth, a farmer roses before dawn each day. While others slept, he tilled the soil, singing to his crops like children. His son, however, lounged beneath the neem tree, scoffing, "Why sweat under the sun? The gods will provide." Year after year, farmer stored extra grain in underground pots. His son mocked this too. Hoarding is for ants, not men. Then came the great drought. Clouds vanished for months. Fields became dust. As villagers begged for food, a farmer opened his storeroom, not just for his family, but for the starving. His son, who had never lifted a finger, found no one willing to share with him. Father told him, "This meal is from my labor. Tomorrow's depends on yours." That night, the sage Vyasa appeared in the son's dream as a circling vulture. "Tell me, boy," it croaked, "why should the tree feed you when you never watered its roots?" His son woke and shook. For the first time, he understood that karma isn't punishment. It's the universe remembering your choices. The next morning, blisters formed on his son's palms as he worked the fields. Villagers whispered until they saw him secretly leaving baskets of grain for the elderly. Years later, when floods came, sun terraces saved the crops. The once lazy boy had become a man who understood karma isn't watching you, it's becoming you. We often mistake karma for fate, but Vyasa reveals the truth. It's the universe's perfect memory. Today's kindness is tomorrow's shelter. Today's neglect, an empty bowl waiting in the future. What seeds am I planting with this thought, this action, this quiet moment? For harvest always comes. Number 6, forgive, not for them, but for you. For 20 monsoons, the boy had fed his rage like a sacred flame. His brother's betrayal, stealing both his inheritance and his bride, had calcified into a stone in his gut. He wandered village to village, his story dripping from his lips like venom, reliving the injustice with every telling. One evening, the ascetic Vyasa found a boy screaming at the sky by a riverbank. Without a word, the sage filled a clay cup from the murky waters and stirred in a pinch of ashes from the Ghats. "Drink," Vyasa said, offering the cup. Boy recoiled. "This is poison." Vyasa's eyes were gentle as moonlight. "No more poisonous than what you've been swallowing every day for 20 years. The boy stared at the cup, trembling in his hands. The liquid mirrored his own face, distorted, dark. "You have 2 choices," murmured Vyasa. "Keep drinking your anger, or pour it out here now, and let the river carry it away." A scream tore from the boy's throat as he hurled the cup into the water. The moment it splashed, something inside him cracked, not violently, but like the first fissure in winter ice welcoming spring. That night, the boy dreamed of his brother, for the first time without fury. Just a man, as flawed as himself, shrinking in the distance, like a shadow at noon. At dawn, he returned to Vyasa with empty hands and a question. "How do I stop the anger from returning?" The sage gave him a mortar and pestle. "Grind these neem leaves into a paste. Bitter work for bitter medicine. Tomorrow, bring it to the village sick house." As the boy's blisters burst and healed, so did his heart. Not because his brother deserved forgiveness, but because he deserved to stop bleeding for a wound the other man had long forgotten. We cling to grievances like they're armor, when really, they're the bars of our own cage. Vyasa's brutal grace reminds us, forgiveness isn't absolution for the offender. It's the moment you look down and realize you've been the jailer, the prisoner, and the key all along. Number 7, live in the present. A young student came to Vyasa's ashram with a restless mind. Though he sat with scriptures daily, his thoughts raced like chariots. What if I fail my teacher? What if I never attain enlightenment? What if... One morning, Vyasa interrupted his pacing. Without a word, the sage filled a fragile clay pot with saffron-tinted water and placed it in the student's hands. "Carry this through the day," Vyasa instructed. "If it spills, you mend it. If it breaks, you sleep without dinner." Student's palms grew damp. Every step became a meditation. Dawn. He sidestepped playful children, hyper-aware of the pot's balance. Noon. At the well, he lowered the bucket one-handed, his other arm rigid as a temple column. Dusk. A monkey screeched. The student was startled, but his grip stayed true. When he returned at twilight, Vyasa asked, "Where were your worries today?" Student blinked. For the first time in months, he realized. They'd vanished. Weeks later, a monsoon storm rattled the ashram. While others fretted over flooded fields, students sat calmly mending a torn manuscript. "Aren't you worried?" a fellow student asked. Student held up his pot, now chipped but sturdy. "The rain falls where it will. My task is to keep this vessel steady. Modern life shouts at us to obsess over futures we cannot control. Vyasa's pot whispers the antidote. Engage so completely with now that worry finds no room to root. Try this today. Choose one simple task: drinking tea, folding clothes, breathing. Do it with such total attention that for those moments, the past and the future cease to exist. There, you've touched eternity." Number 8, humility is true strength. In a kingdom of towering mountains, the young king-emperor's champion strode through villages with his chest thrust forward like a shield. His sword had won 100 duels, and he made sure everyone knew it. "I bow to no man," he would roar, kicking open temple doors rather than bending to enter. Strength needs no courtesy. One evening, the sage Vyasa sat weaving a basket by the roadside. King sneered as he passed. "Old man, why waste your hands on reeds when you could wield steel?" Vyasa smiled. "Why strain your arms, lifting what your mind cannot carry? See that boulder?" He pointed to a massive rock in the field. "Move it." King spat in his palms and heaved. His muscles bulged, veins snaking like rivers under his skin. The boulder didn't budge. "Impossible," he panted. "No stone resists my power." A frail farmer, watching nearby, shuffled forward. "King, may I try?" The warrior laughed until tears streaked his battle scars. "You? A man who bows to oxen?" Farmer said nothing. He wedged a log beneath the boulder, leaned his weight, and with a groan, rolled it aside like a child's toy. The sage placed a hand on the warrior's trembling shoulder. "You strained against the rock. Farmer worked with it. That is the difference between pride and wisdom." King's face darkened. "Tricks are for weaklings." Vyasa shook his head. "Is the river weak because it flows around the mountain? Is the bamboo foolish for bending in the storm? You call humility weakness, yet who just moved the stone?" Months later, invaders came. Instead of charging alone, the king listened to shepherds who knew secret mountain paths. The kingdom was saved, not by one man's might, but by many whispers. At the victory feast, when the emperor praised him, the warrior silenced the hall with a raised hand, then bowed deeply to the farmers in the crowd. We mistake arrogance for strength, when truly it is the weakest posture of all. A tree that refuses to bend doesn't prove its power, only its brittleness. Ask yourself today, where am I straining instead of adapting? Where could humility That silent superpower opened doors my pride has welded shut. Number 9, serve others selflessly. In an ancient temple, a golden oil lamp burned every night before the deity. Over time, it grew resentful. No one even looks at me. It flickered bitterly one evening. Priests chant to the idol. Devotees bring flowers. But I stand here, giving my light, forgotten. The old priest, hearing the lamp's crackling complaints, smiled. "Little one," he said, trimming its wick, "you don't burn to be praised. You burn so a tired farmer can find solace in the divine at dawn. So a grieving widow can see her tears are not alone. Your light isn't yours. It's borrowed from the sun, just as theirs is borrowed from you." The lamp's flame steadied. That night, it burned brighter than ever, not for recognition, but for the hands it guided in the dark. When disciples asked Vyasa about true devotion, he told them of the lamp. The rain doesn't fall for crops to thank it. Stars don't shine to be named. Serve like that, silently, completely, and the lamp thought it gave light. Truth, it was transforming oil into something greater. So with you, your hands, wealth, time, they're just oil. Let life set you aflame for others. When you feed the hungry, you feed the gods. When you clothe the shivering, you dress the divine. No temple ritual is holier. That evening, Vyasa gave each disciple a single coin. Give this away before moonrise. But if the recipient knows it came from you, you failed. One novice slipped his coin into a blind beggar's bowl. Another bought bread for stray dogs. A third placed hers in a child's lost money pouch. At midnight, Vyasa nodded. Now you understand. Heaven's ledger records what's done in secret. We live in an age where every act begs for a like, but the purest help leaves no fingerprint. Today, do one thing unseen. Pay a stranger's toll. Leave fruit at a laborer's doorstep. Then walk away and feel the universe whisper. Number 10. Death is certain. Live fully. On his deathbed, Emperor Conqueror of 1,000 battles lay surrounded by gold, yet empty-handed. His breaths grew shallow as he clutched Vyasa's wrist. I built palaces that touched the clouds, but never sat still to watch a sunset. I won wars, but lost years to worry. My treasury overflows, yet my heart starved for joy. A single tear carved a path through his battle scars. If I had one more dawn, Vyasa placed a sun-warmed mango in the king's palm, the same fruit the king had loved as a barefoot prince, before crowns stole his lightness. You don't need one more dawn, the sage murmured. You needed to taste this dawn's sweetness while you had teeth to chew it. A funeral pyre's greatest lesson. It's too late. Let that truth set you alive today. And the sage spilled the king's jeweled chest onto the marble. You traded mornings with your children for these cold stones, which now warms your skin. Don't someday, your joy, that song your heart hums, sing it now. That love you withhold, give it today. As twilight bled through the windows, the king whispered his final decree, not to his generals, but to a servant boy. Bring me the first mangoes of summer. Tell the dancers to twirl where I can see. And his cracked lips curved. Cancel tomorrow's war council. He died with fruit juice on his fingers and laughter in his ears. Having lived a lifetime in one reclaimed moment, King's throne sits empty now. Yours still holds you. Ask yourself, what someday dream is ripe today? What fear shrivels under laughter's light? What love are you not whispering? Death's certainty isn't a threat. It's the urgent kiss that wakes us from sleepwalking through our own lives. Key takeaways. And so, dear seeker, life flows like Vyasa's sacred river. carrying our choices, our silence, our unspoken loves. These 10 whispers are not rules, but lanterns. Hold them gently. When thoughts darken, remember the banyan tree. When anger burns, pour out the cup. When fear grips, feel the river carry you. For in the end, only this remains. Did you kneel in service? Did you laugh while you could? Did your hands plant shade for those who come after? The universe keeps its accounts, but your heart writes the story. Begin today. The potter's wheel turns. Be clay, but also be the hand that shapes. Want more content? Subscribe and command your thoughts. Thanks for watching.